their own individuals, their own children. And like, yes, there's beautiful redemption that I got to have twins again. Redemption doesn't equal replacement.
Holy Wild Birth is a podcast embracing the reclamation of giving birth, rooted in God's original design, undisturbed.
Here, we share homebirth stories highlighting God's presence as the great midwife, as well as conversations about all aspects of a holistic, spirit-led childbearing year. From the perspectives of myself, traditional midwife Lauren Hall of Rooted in Eden Private Contract Association,
and me, holistic doula and birthkeeper Brooke Collier of Sister Birth.
To choose a holy wild birth journey is to consecrate all your decisions unto the Lord.
And to reclaim creation unadulterated by centuries of human attempts to control and improve upon what God has already called good.
Please remember, birth is not a medical event, but a natural process. We are not your care providers, and this should not be taken as medical advice.
Okay, I know you've been on the edge of your seats, sisters, waiting for this. Today we're picking up right where we left off with Lauren's telling of the story of Willow and Wren. And so in this episode, you're going to get to hear the grand finale of just the rest of her pregnancy, her mother's blessings, some of the physical challenges that she had to face and work through at the end there. And then just the kind of like different, I won't say too much, but just different story of their birth. It was quite a roller coaster, and there's so many layers to it and so many things that God was up to besides just getting babies out of her body. So it's a really great story. I know you'll enjoy it. And just a heads up, when you get to the end of this, take a minute to go look at Embrace Birth Journey, my comprehensive childbirth education program that's specifically for Christian home birth mamas. I'm offering a $50 off discount code now through Sunday, April 28th. Use the code TWINS at checkout and you'll get the $50 off on that.
So I kind of sidestepped your question a little bit on the midwife thing, to finish sharing the like ultrasound experience. And yeah, like it was definitely another new wrestle of like, okay, the Lord asked me to send away these midwives that do have experience in this. Is that still the question? Like, are we still being unassisted? Is there a different midwife you wanted me to have? Or like, you're the midwife? You're still the, okay, God. Mm-hmm. So it was another like leap into surrendering and trusting him with that. But I honestly felt such peace with that that wasn't a huge wrestle for me, I wouldn't say. I did keep, checking in on that. Just to make sure that I was like, not just, to confirm, like, was that really the Lord that I heard? Is this right? Mm-hmm. Let's just move forward in wisdom, not just like recklessness. Yeah, right.
Absolutely.
So just stayed in prayer around that point, I think, and just kind of continued to check as things, but like, there was even a point of like, I had thought I would want to do even just like emotional prenatals with you and mm-hmm. that kind of thing. And that never really unfolded for some various reasons, right? But like, even that, it was just like I needed I spent a lot of time in prayer with the Lord. And then every once in a while it was like, let's talk about this. And I would verbally process with you and my mom. And that, kind of like all the other things. It just kept repeating that way. But I didn't, and I was keeping track of some things to some degree. Like if I felt like I needed to take my blood pressure, I would, or whatever. But like largely it was just very hands off and mm-hmm. like it just didn't have any leading to do any more monitoring or any more, ultrasounds with them or the midwifery clinical skills.
Yeah.
And I just reached into my community for the womanly support. Mm-hmm. And that was all I needed. That was what I felt like, and that's what I felt like I would need for the birth. Now my husband did say, like, I'm totally on board for unassisted birth. But you teach these classes to other families that are preparing for unassisted birth. Will you teach me that class? Like, what you teach, will you go ahead and like prepare me so that I can be fully
so smart,
helpful? And I was like, oh, of course.
It was a good idea.
So we actually did like a quick little, I think it was like a half a day more from the morning until I think maybe 9 to 2 or 10 to 2 or something like that. And I got my mom and Jessica, who is my birth assistant. She knows like my birth bags and stuff, but she's largely, she's trained as a doula and has attended 3-4 births with me. So just starting to be a birth assistant, has learned a few things, knows my birth bag, but largely doula in skill set and is growing.
Yep.
And so she attended this little class with my mom, and we really wanted to cover some breech mechanisms and then like basics of postpartum hemorrhage and NRP, and just kind of like, this is what you would need to do if I, kind of give you information on that or whatever. And I was like, and Brooke knows, Brooke teaches this stuff too, and all of that. So we had
we should clarify for those listening, you had let go the official, the midwives, the real midwives,
right?
So who you did choose to attend your birth, you kind of just said it, but
yeah,
did you want to talk about how you selected your team?
Sure.
The people who would actually be attending the birth?
I guess we never did cover your deciding you to come too.
We talked about like all the ways that you were leaning into your community for kind of informal prenatal care, but like the actual birth attendance, like your process there.
Yeah, for sure. So earlier in the pregnancy, I had really wanted, and I guess maybe we did that when I finally let go of them in that time period. And then when it was like, oh, it's twins, it was like, I really want Brooke here, and before I was even just like, I really wanted Brooke here. I don't know when to pick, like when to.
Yeah, we've been like playing with the idea since the very beginning.
From the very beginning. And then when it became the like, okay, this is who we want, who I would love to be here. How do I, what week? Because you could come for a week. And so, and the Lord told me essentially, like, he ended up confirming a bunch of things in a really sweet way, and basically said she will be here when she needs to be. He's so good. He was right. But I had essentially was like, hopefully she'll be here for the birth. If she's not, she'll at least be here for postpartum, is kind of what that felt the best. So we had picked the week that, for you. And then we're kind of essentially saying like, okay, we'll do virtual care or virtual attendance of the birth around, like if she's not here in person. And so that was like the only thing that I really was like, I want Brooke on the video camera or in the room, whichever one is possible with the distance.
And that request, I would say, got more serious probably after
the
realized
twins.
The twins.
It was when it was twins.
And that's when Tim and I had the more serious conversations about what it would take to get us down here and all that. But
so that was when it got like, okay, how do we make this happen? And so then I also in that space, like I knew I was always going to be Brandon and my mom. Like that's just a given. Sometimes it's my dad has always been at all the births except for Leela's, and actually this one. He kind of came in and he would come and go. But my dad's always just such a like gentle, quiet background, almost like a bodyguard presence of like very like Secret Service in the background. He's just like solemn and quiet, and he's not there to say anything. He's just like, is everybody okay? All right, thanks. And so he would kind of come and stand, and then he would leave, or, like, do I need to get anything? Do I need to run to the store? But he was asking that to like Brandon, like he was just, he just really honors a birth space well. But so anyways, I knew he would kind of come and go. And then Jessica, who I already said who she is. And she's also just a very dear sister and friend to me. Not an actual biological sister, but she's been in my life for like 12 years. Adore her. She's part of the family. She calls my mama mama. You know, like she just is, their family is just dear to us. And so for a minute, I felt like I had to pick for some reason, like between having Brooke or Jessica. But I just kept going, you know what? Like, no, I want them both. Like, and I realized I was like, part of me was like, you know, few people, right? Like we tend to, don't have too many people, don't feel, and like, it felt like I needed to just have 3 for some reason. That was like this expectation in my head that it should only be, you know, one person essentially to be there in addition to my husband and mom. And somewhere along the way, I think it may have even been, no, that would have been later. I don't know. It might have, I think it felt, it's talking with her, and I was just kind of in this space of like, I don't know why I have this expectation, but I've kind of realized it. And like, it's kind of silly. Like, why have I decided that I'm only allowed 3? I want both of you. And I'm fighting about who I'm allowed to have because of some arbitrary rule in my head that I should have not, you know, I should not have more than 3. I don't know where that came from. So I really do want you both here. And so she came, and then there was a birth that I attended with her about 6 weeks before my birth. And I feel like this probably played in a little bit to that decision and realization. But her birth was just she was completely surrounded by multiple women singing worship and praying over her. And it was like a packed room in some ways, but it didn't feel packed. And I was like, this is what I was looking for. This is what I want is to be surrounded by the people who care for me and will pray for me. Like, I want to be surrounded by prayer and worship. Yeah.
And that was more important when push came to shove than people with the clinical skill set.
It really was. Yeah. It was I needed a corporate worship setting in a private space. You know, it was like I needed that to be carried by other people's prayer and worship in that time. And so that's what I really saw in that one birth, because she had her sister, her husband, myself, Jessica, and a photographer who also is like a very, very close, dear friend. And it was just, so me, sister, Jess, so that's 4 women and the husband, and we're all circling her in prayer and worship and just singing like with her. And so it was just beautiful. It was just a beautiful time. And I don't know, it just became this like extra, not that birth hasn't already been a spiritual place, but, and like a place of worship, it's definitely something that's always been part of my message, to like worship through labor. But this felt like a new level in this pregnancy and birth experience, was just a new level of going really deep into worship. So kind of decided that's who we're going to have. That got settled, did the training day. And really, I guess going further into like towards the end, right? Like I started having a lot of like activity-based contractions at about 34, 35 weeks. And they started getting more serious around 35. And I was like, nope, we are not doing this. You know, like if I was laying down, I wouldn't have them. But if I was doing anything, even for like 5-10 minutes, was having some like, I would probably ignore this if it wasn't twins contractions, but like it is. And there's that like niggling idea in the back of my head that they could come early. And so I think from that, and I was having a little bit of swelling. I was having high blood pressure or anything at that point, but I was having some swelling in my feet that would go away if I lay down. And so I just was like, you know what? I'm just going to make it to 36. We're going to go on bed rest. So I went on a week's bed rest from 35 to 36 weeks. And at that point, like one day of bed rest and my swelling was completely gone.
It's like your body was saying, yes, please.
Yes, please.
This is what we were looking for.
This is what we were looking for. And And so I just went on, did a week of rest, and Brandon really just stepped up and started taking care of the household. Not that he wasn't already doing lots already, but he had already been really trying to facilitate me doing as little as possible anyways. But he just was like, you fully in support of that. And we got some people from church and they were feeding us. I didn't tell a ton, but I told a small, I was like, I don't want everybody worrying about it. It's not really, might not even be necessary, but I'm being cautious.
Yep.
Want to keep them in. So I got to 36 weeks. And then it was actually my mother's blessing. And I was blessed with 2 mother's blessings this time. I had my virtual group of friends that did it on the 9th. And then I had a group of my church friends locally come in and actually be in my home and bless our home and all of that on the following day. So
it's a good weekend.
It was such a rich weekend, and it was such, again, kind of like what I was talking about earlier, like just a beautiful surrounding of being surrounded by all of this love and all of this like womanly wisdom and blessing of my babies and my sisters. I think one of my sisters took off work. I didn't think she was going to be able to come because she works weekends, and that was like the only date that we had. So we had to do a weekend. And she actually took off work to be there. And then my other sister, my actual biological sister, drove in 7 hours, I guess it is. Like, she's in Alabama, and she drove in for me to do that. And my other sister-in-law was there. So I had all 3, both my sister-in-laws and my sister were there, and just a group of women that are very near and dear, and my mom and all that. And then I also had just essentially all of the women that do ministry in the Natural Christian Mamas group. And you were in that, Brooke.
Temporarily a beekeeper.
You were temporarily a beekeeper. And so they had hosted one, and it was really cool because the virtual one was first. And they pulled together this beautiful blessing statement over me and the girls, and so much of that. And then your vision of the flower basket, and just there was all of this like beautiful words from the Lord that ended up connecting to the next day and all of their stories and scriptures and words. Like it was like that whole weekend was a journey, and like the Lord was taking me through promises he had given me from years ago. Although, and like I would take up way too much time to try and go into all the details, but I mean, he literally started like 7-8 years ago with things that were relevant, and like the things he had healed and the things he had taught me, and who he's molded me into, and my children and who they're called to be. And then the specific words on these girls, it was just this like mind blowing, like all of these women knowing me from very different parts of my life, all coming together to just like speak life over me and pray over me and these girls. And it was just beautiful. Oh, sweet girl. I'm sorry that Willow says hi. She also says, give me back my milk, please. So it was just a really beautiful, like, I didn't even realize how much I needed that, but it really set the stage for everything that was to come, in the next couple weeks. And so, that I made 36. And so I got up, that day. I remember there was like a church service, there was my mother's blessing, and then there was this big, apologetics night that I wanted to go to. And I had been waiting to go to that for a long time. It had been rescheduled, and I wanted to, and it was like this event I wanted to go to. So I actually was like, I know that I'm not going to be able to do all of these today. because I don't have the capacity. So I skipped church service so that I could go to the 2 or 3 hour apologetics evening at church. And so I just kind of started the day with the mother's blessing, and then it ended up having this beautiful like gathering with them, but I was up and about, and then there actually ended up some spiritual warfare, and we ended up blessing the house and the land, and some things came up that the Lord wanted us to take care of that we feel was like here before we were here, on the land, and some generational cleansing of the land and stuff like that. It got actually pretty intense. And then I went to church, and by the end of that day, my feet were so swollen again. And I went to bed, woke up, and they still were kind of swollen. And my husband was like, no, you're not, you're staying on bed rest.
Yeah.
And so, I was like, I'm probably fine. They could technically, and he was like, no, you're staying on bed rest. And so, then I did. And a couple days into that is when I actually started having some high blood pressure. I started feeling off. Like when I would go to the bathroom, I was like, oh, I feel a little weird. And so that's when I finally took my blood pressure to see what was going on. And I had some high blood pressures. And I was like, well, that's new. I've never, ever dealt with that. And I did kind of think, I wonder if I'm not getting enough food just being in, like Brandon was just having to run the house by himself. And so we got really serious about like, I have to have food every hour. Like this isn't, I can't play around here. Like we have to make sure that I'm getting enough food. And I don't think I have been while being on bed rest.
Yeah.
Just because of the logistics of it. He was taking care of 6 kids,
It's hard to pull off.
Right.
Sure.
He was still feeding me, but it was just it was just the reality.
It's just amazing how much time can pass without you realizing it.
Right. When you're dealing with the others. When they're all asking for snacks too. So we got really serious about that. And then it was that Saturday that I woke up and was having these really intense contractions. And I felt really emotionally like I was in a weird headspace. I was like, I'm not sure that this is labor or not labor, but like I feel like insane. And I remember calling you. It was like 4:35 in the morning. And I think the very first thing I said to you was like, I feel like a caged animal.
Yes.
And like I don't know what's happening. And it was like, it felt very much labory, but it was like, I don't know. The whole experience was very, I can't even tell you if this is labor or not labor, but I feel trapped. And I feel like some of the contractions come and they're really hard and they're really intense. And they feel like I am surely about to like be pushing a baby out. And then others would feel very early labor and not at all anything. And it wasn't even.
So Jessica came over.
Yeah. So I called Jessica. I called my mom. Brandon set up the pool because I have this history of precipitous labors. Mm-hmm. And so it was very much like, we're doing the thing. We probably are going to do it really quickly, especially with how some of them started really, really intense. But then they would I would have a couple that were really intense. And then it's like I switched over and would be like in this early labor space and very present and very like, and then I would be again back in this like deep moaning, blowing my lips, trying to like get on top of things, and just actually really like get into the process. But it felt like such a struggle and such a battle, which is not my, like normally I like love labor and I'm like, let's do the thing and really can release into it. But it was like, this was it felt like a battle. And I kept saying it then too. It was like, I feel like I'm in 2 different labors. Yeah. And so like my first Brandon got the pool ready and I was like, I need the water like now. And so, I used the bathtub first while he was kind of like, I was like, get the pool up, but don't use the water yet. Like, I don't know what's happening. And, I got in the bathtub and then it started feeling way more serious. And, we had already had Jessica coming in. And then my mom, she just lives next door. So she came right on over, and she sat with me in the bathroom for a while. And even in there, I felt very like, I think I talked to you for a decent amount of time. And then I maybe hung up when she got there, or I don't remember why I got off the phone with you necessarily. Do you remember why?
I think it was just so you could tend more fully to what you were doing, and there pushing wasn't imminent, and we didn't need me like on the phone.
I think I just stopped talking.
You know,
to you.
It was just
right?
like,
yeah, it was just kind of like, okay, you're aware what's going on. So I got into the bathtub, labored there. My mom was there, and essentially it ended up going like this whole time. It was like really, really intense, and then it would stop. But somewhere along the way, I got out of the bathtub and went down and actually got into the tub, the birth pool. But I also really labored in a lot of different places. I was like in the birth pool, and then I would get out, and I was, just kind of like I couldn't get comfortable in that space. And it was just this like all day process.
Which that alone is sort of discombobulating when you're so used to quick ones.
Very discombobulating. And I couldn't, at one point I thought that like Wren had actually moved down and was moving Willow out of the way. Like, this like
Willow had been positioned to be baby A, and so it seemed that they were going to make a switcheroo.
Right. So like Willow had always been in the exact same spot this whole time. Like she was head down, real low, and on my left side. And Wren was the one that kind of just was always moving somewhere, but she tended to be kind of along the top of my uterus in like a transverse way. Now I'm realizing it was always really hard to palpate them because of the anterior placenta. Even I did have the other midwife check even after, like later on, because she goes to my church. I was like, can you just feel and see what you think too? So later in pregnancy, and she did, and she also had the same thoughts I did, but it was also just like, this is really kind of unclear. But I think that what was happening is what felt like a bum sometimes was actually Wren's head in between Willow's feet.
Oh, yeah.
And so sometimes it felt like a little bum in legs because the way she had placed her head. But sometimes I'd be like, she's breached. Sometimes I felt like she was head down, and she was just going either to my right side or transverse long top. And in this labor, somewhere deeply towards the end, I was like, I think she's gotten tired of Willow not coming out and is trying to come out herself. And so she had felt like she had like was almost trying to make the exit first. And my belly had completely changed, and we got to the point where it's like, I have full purple line. It's like late in the evening. I have full purple line. My sacrum is bursting, and yet I'm still doing this like weird dance of like, I am deep in transition, and then I am so not at all. And it was just a very strange, I kept saying the whole thing, like, I feel like I'm in two labors. I feel like I'm in two labors. Like, what is happening? And some of it was like, well, are we fighting? Like, is one labor Willow and one is Wren's? Like, what is, like, that doesn't make any sense. But is that somehow spiritually what's happening? Like, what's going on? And
I had heard this phrase somewhere in there of double-minded, and my first association was that Bible verse, which is a negative, like,
right,
don't be double-minded. But I think it was more like, I had this impression is like, your body is double-minded, like it's like not agreeing with itself and its purposes. Almost.
Yes,
like, it was a very strange labor to witness.
It was very strange
because it wasn't, and you expect multips to have atypical labors to some extent. So like, I wasn't really worried, but it was also just kind of like,
what is happening?
Seen one quite like this before.
What? Yeah, it was very strange. And so I got to the point where I was in the birth pool, and I remember for a while just being like really discouraged and like heavy. Like everything felt just so heavy. And I think that's probably about the time that you had shared, because I know you were texting Jessica and my mom, and I remember, I think I finally just said it out loud that I was just like, just cut him out. Like, I'm done. Like, I can't do this anymore. And which is really not like, I mean, I have done 3-day labors without even thinking, like my midwife was going to leave, like it wasn't even there was just this heaviness, this emotional, like I can't do whatever this is and this needs to stop. It wasn't the labor, and I don't know how to explain it other than
the physical aspects.
It wasn't the physical aspects. It just felt like the emotional turmoil, like there was this deep turmoil inside of me, and I was trying to run away from that. And like I ended up saying that, like, just take me to the hospital, let him cut him out. And I think everybody in the room was like, I'm sorry, who are you? Like, what is happening right now? And that is when they had all received different words. Like you had received the double-minded. Jessica had gotten this like vision. And my mom had also gotten a word. And I'm trying to remember exactly how they ended up sharing, because I was very much in a deep labor land space. But essentially,
Jessica shared with me that she'd had this picture of cobwebs. The cobwebs, and not very sure what it meant. And she wanted to wait until she was sure before she said anything.
Right.
And earlier that day we had said there might be something that comes up during this labor about Levi. Let's be on watch for that.
Yeah.
And I think at some point around that time, she connected the dots. And was like,
this isn't fear, this is grief. Yeah. So she saw the cobwebs, and she said that it was like they were coming down around me and trying to like encase kind of, and she first had thought earlier when she saw it that it was fear, but then she's like, this is grief. And so when she said that, I'm trying to remember what Mom said after that. So she had seen a vision of Levi under a willow tree, and she had said that she saw Levi saying, it's okay, I gave them permission to come. Like, I know that you're not replacing me. And that it was the immediate like release. Like, you're right. Because like I would rather, and that's when the C-section made sense. Because I was like, I don't want to be the one replacing them. Like someone else can do that. Someone else can cut them out of me and replace Levi, because I'm not going to replace him. That's not happening. That's not what we're doing here. And he was saying, the Lord or Levi, like I don't necessarily trying to wrap some theology around it. It wasn't like some ghost speaking to my mom, but it was like just this, like, it's okay. You're not, it's okay. There's a release here. I know that you're not replacing Levi, right? Like they are their own individuals, their own children. And like, yes, there's beautiful redemption that I got to have twins again, but it wasn't to like replace him. Like it's just, that's just not what that's about. And redemption doesn't equal replacement. And so that all of a sudden I was like, oh, I'm not wrestling. That's what I'm wrestling. I'm wrestling out this grief. And that is when I shared with everyone what the Lord had helped me see earlier in my pregnancy. And I said I would get back to. So essentially what happened is, as I began to share earlier, when I was afraid that this pregnancy, that this baby had gone on to be with the Lord, that he shared with me why he'd taken Levi. And he told me that it was an answer to my mama prayer that my babies would always walk with him all the days of their life. And that Levi would have not chosen to do that had he walked this earth. That, like I just saw this whole, like, if he had stayed, he wouldn't have been with me in eternity. And so it was I could have him temporarily in this life, or I could have him eternally. And my heart has always been if he would walk with them all the days of their life. That's my mama prayer, that, and so he said, so he did. He's with me. And we began singing. And actually that unlocked something for Brandon, because that is mercy. That is, my friend Caitlin says that sometimes death is a rescue. It's a rescue mission, because eternity is so much better than this place. And And I truly believe that death has lost its sting. And that was a surrender that I would so much like every day, so much rather have him in eternity than get to have him here temporarily and him perish, like just that, please no, God, So it was mercy. And my husband got so much deep understanding. I know I had told him that, but somehow it didn't connect until this labor, that he heard it and he understood what I had meant before. And he was like, I always thought the mercy word was about like that I wouldn't have been a good dad to Levi or something, that I wouldn't have, that he was going to, have some kind of disability, or there was going to be, he's going to have a hard life and I wouldn't be able to be trusted with him, and he was like, I realized how wrong that, like that I'd been mad at God for this, and that wasn't it at all, And so he got on his cajon, which is this like percussion box, and he started worshiping, and we put on the Song of the Lamb, and there's a line in it that is just like, let it not be said of me that I withheld anything. And as and you had said, I keep seeing you earlier, you had said, I keep seeing you like stomping. Like I see you stomping this out, and so I actually did. I got out of the birth pool and I started like stomping in worship, and just this, it's a very like drum heavy song. And it was like releasing Levi and these babies and all of my children. Like there was just this powerful moment of worship to just say, let it not be said of me that I withheld anything, not my children, not this life, like all of it is yours. And every moment, every breath, every child, everything you've ever given me, it is yours. And it was just this deeply powerful moment where we were all in a place of worship, and there wasn't dry eye. We were all just weeping and just deeply releasing to him everything. And even Jessica was like that. I realized I was withholding some things, and she, like there was just like, it was an impactful moment for everyone. I feel like, I don't know. Do you want to say anything to that experience at all?
I just wished I could be in the room.
Yeah,
no. I'm actually in the room.
Yeah,
it was charged with Holy Spirit.
So
good.
It was deep, and at that point, when that kind of died down, I think we got through that whole song and then another one or something, and
we did a few,
and then it just kind of began to die. The worship itself kind of died down a little bit. And it was like just that charged moment of it. And I was like, I'm exhausted, then like the exhaustion like hit, and I was like, I'm so tired. And I had been, even then, like I had been throwing up throughout this labor, which was new to me. I'd never experienced that. Like there was so much of this like weird battle thing happening, and all of the intensity. And it seemed like it all kind of like culminated at that point.
Yeah.
And I just began to like, I'm tired and now I need to rest. And we kind of did some just assessing the picture, and was like, okay, should I rest? Should I take some herbs, and just get some sleep? And then maybe like it'll like kick off into the precipitous place now that all that emotional stuff is taken care of, right?
Yes.
And that's kind of what I think everyone expected. Like, okay, she's going to go to sleep. She's going to wake up. She's going to push out babies. Like that's what's going to happen now.
On the edge of our seats.
Yeah.
We're putting Lauren to bed, but we're on the edge of our seats.
Right. And so we hung up with you. You expected to be called like in an hour or so. And instead I took those herbs and I went to sleep. And like, it was like a deep sleep, slept for a good couple hours. I think I woke up at like 4 or 5. At that point, they were like, the contractions stayed. I mean, even when I was sleeping, I remember like moaning through them, waking up every 3 minutes, moaning through them, but I was sleeping really good. And they were like yours to me, waiting, for it to like kick over. But they stayed constant and heavy. And then I kind of woke up at 4 or 5 and I was like, okay, they're kind of a little less tapered right now. Like let me get a shower, and my hair was super knotted. And so we like brushed out my hair and braided it and just working through the contractions that were coming. They were still coming. But it seemed like instead of getting longer, stronger, closer together, it was like they were going in reverse. It was like now I was on this like backward slide, and I was in the fully, whereas before I kept saying I was laboring. I feel like I'm in 2 different labors. Now it felt like I was in the lighter labor, and like the intense labor was gone.
Yeah.
And it was just like, what is happening?
On the phone with me that morning, you said something. You told me you'd done all those things. You kind of felt like a whole new woman. Like, the energy had shifted. Like, I'm ready to. I think you said, "Okay, now we can have my precipitous birth."
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Let's do it.
Ready for that.
Yeah. And then nothing. And then nothing.
You went back to resting.
I went back to resting, and it just kept tapering down and down. And everyone got some sleep. Jessica took some, got an hour or 2, or she went to sleep, and then she went ahead and left. And me and my mom were like, let's go and walk the property, see if that if it's going to kick up or if it's going to stop, and so I just gotten some sunshine, and then I think she ended up going home, and somewhere in the way I was like, I think all of this was like a spiritual labor. Like it doesn't feel, it feels cheap to call what that was a prodromal labor, because it birthed this thing that needed to come out. This like idea of replacing Levi, or this like, just that emotional stuff. Like I had to essentially birth that before I could birth them. And so the labor ended up stopping, and I actually had one of my prayer warrior women that had been at the blessing. She sent a message to me, and she said, I had this dream last night of you in labor, and your doctor was the Lord, and the Lord said your labor is going to stall, but there's not a problem. There's nothing you need to fix. It's just going to be a week's, or a couple. She said it might be weeks or something like that. Like there was this it's going to stop, and it's for a purpose, is what she said.
Yeah.
Is what the doctor in the dream, who was Jesus, said. It's going to stop. There's no problem. It's for a purpose. And Brandon even struggled a little bit, because I was like, I don't know, should I go to rest? I don't want to go backward. And he said, I hear the Lord saying you're not going backwards. Like you're not going to go backward. Like we're going forward.
That's right. Yeah.
And so even though it stopped, it still was like, he's not wrong. We're still like, that's done. I had to do that. I had to birth that. And so it's actually funny, because I've been calling it, we live here in Arkansas, and what happens as we move from winter into spring is we have what we call fake spring, where spring comes for a week and then it disappears and we're fully in winter again. And then spring comes for another week and then we're fully in winter again. And it's just a thing. It's fake spring until actual spring comes. And so I've been calling this entire labor experience fake spring. That was fake spring. It did birth something, but we're still waiting for the flowers to bloom and birth these babies. And so then I started having even more high blood pressure. There was some stuff that I had to deal with there. Started using acupuncture and my laser, got that managed. I was using that. It's a long story to go into, but essentially we always just had peace around that. And I just got to the point where I was literally eating egg every hour and all sorts of food and managing that. But like my whole birth team just had nothing but peace around it. And
even though the numbers were like in ranges that would technically be considered not good.
Yeah. Yeah. Like there was some severe high blood pressure that was definitely like, what should we do here? But then I could bring it down and I could always bring it down. And so we would, but I stayed in a hypertension range, even when I could bring it down. So it was like, okay, what's going on here? But I kept praying on it and kept just feeling like the Lord was like, just, you're fine. And so then we get through that week and Sunday comes and it's Palm Sunday. And we actually got to our precipitous birth. And so the birth story in and of itself, like was actually really short. I could probably tell it in 3 minutes. Like, I woke up, it was 7 a.m, and I had this little bit of bloody show. Just paper cut amount of blood in a whole mucus plug and this little bit of blood. But I have never seen blood and not had a baby within 2-3 hours. Like, I always have baby immediately when there's blood. And interestingly, I never seen blood. I had seen some mucus and I kept waiting for it. And I thought, I don't know, this is weird that time. But I mean, I had the full purple line. We have pictures. I have the sacrum open, like my hips changing, the baby, like all the things. But I did never see blood. So it was very interesting on that aspect of things. And then by the time I'd woken up, like all that had decreased and like the purple line was gone, all that stuff. But I don't think I shared that earlier. So anyway, I was like, Brandon, I don't know if we should go to church. I just saw blood. And he was like, oh, okay. And he went, made me eggs, and he immediately went downstairs and started filling up the pool. Didn't say anything to him. He just was like, okay, that's my cue. And he immediately was like, she's in labor. I wasn't having like any contractions yet. Like I was having these like piddly, like, okay, that is something.
And spaced out, right?
And they were pretty close, but like, it was like, whatever, like I can talk through these. I was completely normal. But I sent the text because of my history. Mm-hmm. So I like sent that to you, sent it to Mom, sent it to Jess. They all immediately, like Jessica and my mom both, and Brandon were both like, we got to get there. And I was like, I had taken my blood pressure. It was really high. And I was like, I don't need to go into labor with this high. So I did my laser, which brought it down like 10 points. Historically had been, my laser on my acupressure points, and then a magnesium bath would bring it down another 10 points. So I would it's like, okay, I'll do those 2 things and I'll be good. And I was. And then I was by, I think 8, I was like, okay, I'm starting to feel like this is how I felt at the beginning of Leela and Holden's labor, that were really, really fast and like just was very grounded, could feel it opening my cervix, could feel the, and I was just in that element of like, I am grounded and flowing with, but they still were like not severe. Like I could still talk if I wanted to, but I was like recognizing that they were starting to get my attention. And then by 8:48, or I think 8:48, I have a text that was like, okay, that was my first contraction that took my attention. And so then I got into the birth pool, and immediately it was real. Mm-hmm. And we were like, okay, here the baby's coming, and I could, it was not a pain-free birth like I had experienced before, but it was strong and intense. And I definitely had some like, okay, I could do this, but it was it was just fast. It was so like, I could feel her moving every little bit into my pelvis. Like I could just like the intensity was like, okay, she is coming like a freight train, get ready. And somewhere in there, I was like, we haven't called Brooke back, like get her on the video. And so she actually was called in pretty late.
Yeah.
For the hour that I was actually in labor. Yeah. Cause it was like, I think in my mind, she had been like, I had already made her aware. And so it was like somewhere in there, I thought she was on the phone, and I like actually looked around and was like, wait a second, Brooke's not on the video. Like, where's Brooke? And so they started getting that set up because they had been trying to just fill the birth pool really quickly with hot water. So he was, he's doing the whole boiling water, filling the bathtub, filling the pool, got the water really hot actually. And I got to this point where I was like, I can't push this baby out because the water's too hot. Because I kept saying it's hot. But they thought like the room was hot, I'm hot, and I couldn't get out the words. Yes. The water I'm turning into a lobster. Like and so I finally got like, she was there, and I was like, I can't push her out. She will be burned. Like this is too hot. And And I finally was like, water, hot. and then Jessica grabbed like a 5-gallon drinking water that was right here. And she just poured, a lot of that cold water. Cause I think we had pulled the hose in, but it wasn't cooling it off enough. And so she just poured that in, and it immediately was like, okay, there, you can stop. And I could have the baby, and I remember saying to Brandon, I'm going to poop. Do we have a net? And then he was like, yeah. And he started to leave. And I was like, don't leave, stop leaving. and so he sat back down, and then that's when I pushed her out. So I pushed Willow out, head down, really pretty fast. I remember trying to like slow her down because she was coming so fast. And I was like, you need to stop. Like, you need to like, let yourself stretch. Don't push body. She was just like, shooting out. And so I slowed a little bit at her head and, then waited. And it felt like a long time for her head to her shoulders in my own brain. It wasn't, but it was 10:15. She's fully born, and she let out a nice cry. And she was just, somebody at the mother's blessing had said, one's coming yelling, one's coming singing. And so I'd had this like assurity that they were going to be fine. And so she was the one that came out yelling. And then I tried to hand her off. Well, first I was like, okay, so basically what happened is I had always planned on wrapping the baby to me to birth baby B, right?
Yeah.
And so
you wouldn't have to interrupt that.
So I didn't have to interrupt anything, and I didn't want to like let go of my baby and all of
your
that.
Cord could stay attached
And
to that too,
right, all of those things. And so I was like, I remember having a brief moment where I was like sitting back and I was taking her in and, just holding her. And I was like, I just want a break, Lord. And then the contraction hit, and I was like, I'm not going to get a break, am I? I was like, I'm going to need the carrier. And they started to get up to find it. And then I was like, oh, never mind. We don't have time. And I felt Wren like drop into my pelvis. And I was like, never mind. You're going to have to take her. And so I started to hand Will off to Brandon, but then realized that the cord, like, I was like, you're going to have to like lean over or get in. I'm sorry, and then as he's like doing that, somehow he actually stripped his pants off while holding the baby. So he was standing there in boxers about to get in the birth pool. And then Wren just comes out like in complete breech, completely in her sack. And then her head released without a contraction. It was 10:20. That she was fully born, like
5 minutes apart.
5 minutes apart, really one contraction in between, one contraction that I was pushing her out, and then pushed her head out without a contraction, which is normal with breeches because there's nothing in the uterus. So the uterus you don't need a contraction to push the head out. So she came out completely in one contraction with the body. And then I kind of breathed and then pushed out her head. And then the sack had broken right at like the crown of her head. And so I just opened the sack and pulled her out of it and then out of the birth pool. And I wouldn't even say it was like she was shocky. It was more of like, she was just like asleep and like, hi, I'm here,
Yeah.
And just was super calm. And at first I was like, oh, does she need breaths and like help, which is normal with breech. And so I did suck a little out of her mouth and gave her like a breath, and she kind of went, and like I felt that air, like there was no real resistance even in her lungs. Like she just was very and like she opened her eyes and just looked at me, and I remember going, oh, you're here. You're here. Like you're fully here. I see you.
Yeah.
And she had great tone and great color and all the things, that she just wasn't like crying. And she was just like, yep, I'm here.
She never did really.
Yeah.
Later,
she gave,
it was like a long.
Yeah. She gave a little, when I gave her that breath, she had given this like tiny little cry. And it was just like, almost like, how dare you interrupt my sleep?
Yeah.
Like, it was like, I'm fine. Thank you. Because she was breathing. She just wasn't crying. So she was just super calm. It was very interesting to watch her just kind of be present and like, I'm fine, Mom, thanks. Like, let me be. And so we just, we hung out in the birth pool. My placenta detached pretty quickly after. For me, I normally hold on to my placentas for a while, but this one came within like 20 minutes. And I'm used to like a good 45 minutes before it releases, and then like deciding that I want to push it out like 10 or 15 minutes later. And this one just kind of was like, oh, it's right there. Nope, I want to get that out. Okay. And so we just kind of got that job done, and got me tucked away into bed. And then we ended up finally checking after doing cord burning, which was really special. Really enjoyed that. We said their blessing over them. We read a blessing that my friends had written, and then one that I'd asked my sister to write by the unction of the Lord. That was a whole special thing. And so we had a really cool special moment right as they were born with my Leela. She came down and just like totally embraced these babies. But there was this like fresh moment. You could almost see like this level of sorrow and this level of excitement. And all the same, like she was grateful and grieving. And I know that might, but I really do. I really believe she felt that. And I just kind of held all three of my girls and thanked them for staying. And then, anyways, we did the cord burning and, did some more prayer over them and blessing them, dedicating them to the Lord. And, then we found out that after resting and actually then later on inspecting the placenta, we found out that they are actually identical twins. So they were not di-di, they were mono-di. And so that means they shared a chorion and then two separate sacs to enter the amniotic sacs. They had two there, but one placenta, and one chorion. So that means that they came from one egg. So they are identical twins. And one was Willow, baby A, was 6 pounds, 8 ounces. And Wren, little bird, Wren was 413. And they were 18 and 17 and a half inches long, just tiny little beings. And we've been in the bed pretty much ever since.
Yeah.
For the last 3 weeks.
For your chair bed.
My chair bed, in my pillow prison, and just trying to navigate, honestly, a really hard postpartum, but I'll probably do a postpartum episode, as well. And, but
these
it's
little
been,
girls are thriving though.
they're thriving, they're growing, they've already surpassed their birth weight and, are continuing to grow and doing really well. And we're all healthy and enjoying life. So that's my long story. Thank you for hanging out with us. I'm happy to take more questions and comments. I know that I felt like there was so much to this, story. And, I feel like even some of it I'm still unpacking.
Yeah.
So yeah,
sure
that's it. That's their story.
Such a good story with so many evidences of how loved you are by the Father.
Yes.
Directly by His Spirit and also through His people.
It really is. Just really, really, really showed out His love for me. And I definitely feel loved and grateful. And, so much of the theme has been redemption and surrender. Like if you will surrender, you will see, the redemption. You will see my blessing. And so it's His story. It's their story. And I feel grateful to be part of it.
Thank you so much for taking the time to share that with us.
Yeah, thanks.
It's a lot of sharing.
It was a lot of sharing. I probably need a nap now.
I know that your sharing is going to bless the people who listen.
I hope it does. I hope it does. Well, be blessed. And thanks for listening. So much for it being 30 minutes.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of Holy Wild Birth. We hope that you were genuinely encouraged, inspired, and challenged by what you heard today. If you're loving what you hear, please make sure that you share it. Leave reviews. That helps other mamas find this content as well. And don't forget to read the show notes, okay? Because that's where you can find our email address if you want to reach out to us and start a conversation. It's also where you'll find free offerings as well as invitations to work with me and or Lauren. We can't wait to get to know you. See you next week.